What's up, gifted family? Welcome to another episode of the show that is the GP YouTube. Just a reminder that if you support what we do here, make sure to go over to giftedperformance.com and sign up for our automated coaching service. For only $1 a day, you'll get access to 15 highly customized training programs, a macronutrient calculator, our meal planning feature that lets you build and save meals based on your macros, as well as access to our private Facebook group. All subscriptions help us in continuing to put out great content to get you to your fitness goals. Thanks for stopping by, and without any further delay, let's get into today's video. Enjoy.
And welcome back to another episode with your three favorite coaches, Squat Dad, Mr. Cameron Cheek, and Mr. Pauly Rocket. Cam, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm great.
What are you sipping on? I just saw you sipping on something. What are you drinking?
Spoiler
alert.
One, and then Reese's Puffs in this cup.
Reese's Puff. Paul, what do you got?
Crack rock in my water cup. You can call it crack tea.
That's what we do for the podcast. Smoke crack. All right. Paul, what are we talking about today? What's on the agenda for today?
Starting a coaching business, dude.
Yeah, man. We get a lot of questions about that.
I have no idea about. I've been winging it since day one. It just happened to kind of work out.
And there's your content right there. Just make it up as you go.
For that first.
Well, yeah, this might be one of the topics that I get the most, I don't know about you guys, but I get the most questions about is like, hey, what kind of certifications do I need? How do I get clients? How do I market myself? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm making it up as I go, just
I'll
like
tell
Paul.
you what, you need to spend a shit ton of money on a business life coach whose like only business ever has been taking money from people, telling them how to start a business.
To teach you how to be a doer. Don't be a don'ter. Be a doer. That's
then you got to make memes like nobody's going to get it for you.
Ooh, motivational memes. Yeah. Wow.
That's that Gary Vaynerchuk guy. Does he ever say anything that's like really useful?
No, like, he just says like,
it's what I did. I just got off my ass. I got sick of sitting, you know?
Yeah.
And then just fucking went for it. Like, what?
And I work 22 hours a day. That's all I do. And look at me now. All right, but no, we don't recommend that. But we are going to get into your questions today. We're going to knock out as many as possible. If we do have a good amount left, we will circle back to this topic. We kind of like to separate these Q&As up into specific topics. So a little bit about training, a little bit about PEDs, some nutrition, and now we're going to talk coaching. So we'll jump right in for the first question, and I'm going to throw this one. Actually, I'm going to throw this one to myself to start because I think that I have a different start kind of in personal training than you guys do. And the first question is, how did you get your clients? So how did you get those first couple clients that you really built out your roster? And how I got my clients is how I recommend a lot of people start out in personal training, and that is to actually work at one of these big box corporate gyms. Understand how to actually work a floor, market yourself, talk to people, learn the personal aspect of things. That way, when you get into the online side of things, you actually know that the people that you're working with are legitimate human beings. They're not just numbers in a spreadsheet. But I'm interested to hear, and Paul, we'll start with you, how you got your first clients in the online space.
So for myself, I got really into reading research, getting my exercise science like undergrad degree and stuff. And I just thought it was fun to share stuff that I was learning and reading and try and interpret things. And then also I was kind of a little bit of an asshole early on too, like getting in like Facebook arguments and trying to make people look stupid. Not really the greatest way to go, but it does draw some attention. And at some point, eventually, I was approached by people that were just like, hey, like you sound like you know how to program. You know, eventually my girlfriend, I met my girlfriend and she was like, wow, you're like pretty smart. And I like, you know, some of the stuff you're doing. And it just kind of built from there to where essentially at the end of the day, I think it all just came down to like buy-in, you know, like people seeing some of the stuff in the transform, like my fat to lean transformations and seeing the information that I was putting out. And that got people to sort of buy in and believe in the process, I guess.
Cool. Cam, how'd you pluck the first couple from the internet space?
Yeah. So my first couple clients, I had one that was online, and the rest I was personal training. I was actually doing group fitness and anytime fitness. But
Hell yeah.
I was pretty big in high school for those that didn't know me then, or have seen pictures. But I was like 260 pounds. Knew nothing about nutrition, training, anything like that. I just was like, people go on these islands on TV shows, don't get to eat a lot, and they're like, "Oh, it's gone 3 weeks. I'm down 21 pounds when I get back." I was like, "Hey, like I'll suffer for a couple months to be down a little bit." And I think I like starved myself for like 7 or 8 months and was down, or no, it was less than that. It was probably like 4 or 5, and I was down around 80 pounds from the Christmas break to graduation of that spring. Um, and then from there, I had a guy that was like, "Hey, help me lose weight, blah blah." So kind of helped him in a way. Didn't do it the same way that I did it, and it didn't go super well. He lost some weight, but that was my first like online client. Then did group fitness stuff, and then ended up meeting Paul, moving in with him. And just because where I was at financially in my life, having a son and everything, I needed a way to make money. And originally, that was the reason I started coaching at first, was to make money, and then started living with Paul. And he was like, "Dude, like it's not really how you do things." And he taught me a lot, and then just kind of started and went from there.
Yeah. So how'd you like the group fitness?
I mean, honestly, like if I went back to it now, I would hate it. But at the time, it was a lot of fun. It was really different. And at first, I had to get way out of my comfort zone because I'm very, just quiet and to myself a lot. But when you start getting and working with those people and everything, and it's fun. You talk about the whole time with them and everything, and yeah, kind of like what you were saying, learning how to actually work with people. Somebody, if they're wanting to be a coach, I strongly, strongly advise to start as a coach working with bodybuilders. Start working with general population people, because most anybody that is a bodybuilder knows, people that are athletes are mentally wired just a little bit different, have way more intense goals, um, and just a realistic, mental standpoint, with things versus what they can tolerate or put themselves through versus somebody that's just general lifestyle. They don't really care, like they go up a couple pounds.
A lot more emotional baggage with a bodybuilder.
Um, and so just starting with general lifestyle, you get just so much like a wide variety of different people, different lifestyles, and you'll learn really quick working with a handful of just general population people that cookie cutter won't work at all, because they're going to do what's easiest for them, and most sustainable, or just not do it at all, versus some bodybuilders will literally suffer, whether it might be the most optimal plan or not, but they'll go through some just stupid stuff just because it's like, "Oh, nope, that's what they told me to do."
Yeah.
It's a mental disorder.
So my canned advice that I give most people when they come with me and they're like, "Hey, how do I build up my online clientele?" is like, go get a job at like LA Fitness or Crunch Fitness or something like that. You're not going to make very much money, but what you are going to get is clients are going to be delivered to you. Like you're going to have people delivered by the gym, and a lot of these gyms don't sell coaching outside of training. The person signs up for their training sessions. They buy 10 training sessions for $500 that they need to spread out over 6 months. But there's time in between those training sessions. And that's where you, as an online coach, can kind of sell yourself like, hey, like, are you going to be doing some training outside of this? Like, I can charge you, or we can do like $50 or $100 a month, and I'll do your nutrition and your training for the times that we're not together, and the times that we are together. We can really refine technique and stuff like that. Be careful with that because you can get fired, obviously, for coaching under the table. I think that's most big box gyms frown upon that. But it's a really good way if you're someone who sucks at marketing. You couldn't sell ice to an Eskimo. You're someone like that. Start off with one of these big box gyms that'll give you your clients for you because that's how I got my start, and I kind of built my transformations up from there and then marketed that.
It'll push you out of your comfort zone too. And another thing you can do too is, if you have a couple friends that are really close with you, maybe somebody that does want to lose weight, get in shape, tell them, obviously read a ton, listen to a ton of podcasts. I know we'll go over some people at the end of it for resources and references to learn from, but maybe find a friend that, they're eager to, improve their physique or just be in a better healthy lifestyle, whatever it is, and tell them, like, I'm just now getting into this. I have learned a lot. Maybe even work with them for free and just say, hey, don't expect me to be perfect with this, but, I want to learn and get better over time. Would you be somebody that would be willing to work with me? And just let them know that, don't advertise as like you're some professional when you're just getting started. Find somebody that's a good friend of yours, be up front from the gate, and that way they can communicate with you too, and you be able to say, hey, I haven't been doing this so long, so if you feel that I'm lacking in one area or you need more of this, more of that, please give me criticism, because you're trying to learn how to coach at that point.
That I think is huge. And it's essentially, I think probably a lot of times coaching picks you because somebody will approach you sort of with that idea often, like somebody just wants help. And, that's sort of the start of your coaching career right there. And I know for myself, when I first started, I was charging money, but it was a very small amount. You just got to be careful with that and not let it ride too long, because I know I've had two prior coaching ventures that just failed either due to immaturity, mostly all to immaturity. Just, I wasn't ready in my life to sort of put clients first or not let my personal life maybe get in the way of my productivity and stuff. And when you're not getting paid much, too, that sort of motivation and incentive to work just isn't there as much. It makes a huge difference when you go from charging $50 a month for like a program to 150, and then the higher it goes, the more likely you're going to be to want to put out good work. I know for myself, when I was charging low amounts of money, it was really easy to be like, I'm gonna watch Netflix tonight. I'll write this in the morning, send it to them, versus like when you're making like good money and people are paid, you work for them, you're like, okay, I'm staying up till like 1 in the morning till I finish all this fucking work because I want to be good at what I do.
I think building up your clientele. I don't know if either of you has any friends that are like photographers. Do you have any friends that are photographers? Cam, your brother, he's a videographer. So like a lot of times when you're starting, you got to like build up your portfolio, and the same thing exists for online personal training. You need to build up your portfolio. So you reach out to friends, family, and say, hey. A photographer would say, "Hey, can I shoot you? Can I build up my portfolio that way?" It's the same way with online training. You're building up your resume and your portfolio by working, like Paul said, for very cheap, maybe even free at the start, saying, getting that reputation of, "Hey, this is I know what I'm doing now."
Yeah, I think
But
that's
Paul brings up another good point when he talks about like how much more stock you put in it as you start to make more money. And that's another reason why I tell people to go work at these corporate gyms, because it kind of from the jump it puts that into you like, hey, you're not going to make a lot of money in personal training to begin with, but the online side of thing, when you're ready for that, is going to be a huge jump up. Because I worked 80 hours a week at LA Fitness, and I made, what did I make? I made like 1,200 a paycheck. Every 2 weeks I made 1,200, working like 80 hours, $6 a session. It was terrible. And then I jumped into the online space once I had built up. You got to level yourself up to that online space, and you end up making a lot more, and you're valuing it more. Like, I mean, I'm not rich. None of us here are rich by any means, but we enjoy what we do. So we are not financially rich, but we are
I don't
spiritually
know,
rich.
man. Cam's driving that used Audi, bro.
Tim, he just tried you with the used Audi. Put that out there.
No, it's nice. It's a nice car though. Seriously.
Yeah, what were you gonna say
Um, man,
before I rudely interrupted you?
Um, dang, Paul, you done killed me, man.
Done killed his vibe. It'll
Oh,
come back to you.
I remember what I said. You're talking about photography and building a portfolio. I know one thing for me that luckily helped a lot, and I don't really fully advise for it, but before I started coaching during my first and only contest prep that I've done for a show back in summer of 2018, uh, man, I was chasing the whole Instagram fame and trying to, get a lot of followers, views, likes, whatever. I was getting up to, I think I got to like 25,000 followers too, and was getting around like 2 or 3,000 likes per picture, a couple hundred comments. I was getting some, like a couple free supplements and like some free ice cream
Yeah,
every.
bro. Tone down
Quit
the
bragging,
flexing.
dude. Quit bragging.
Tone down the
No, hey,
flex.
I know Tam is in the middle of the story, but like I remember coming home and or him coming home from work or something when we lived together and I'd be working on coaching. He's like, hey dude, I got a great idea. I'm gonna make a YouTube channel and I'm gonna have like delicious fucking like macro friendly meals. And I was like, fucking why? I was like, like
But I did connect with a lot of people, and like my first ever competitor, Jeremy Sayers, a couple other people, Curtis, people like that. I've actually known them for almost 2, 3 years through Instagram and stuff like that, and that helped a lot just with getting an audience, reaching out to people, and then just my own testimony of weight loss and stuff like that, and Paul getting me peeled to the bone for my show probably for sure helped. Which, by the way, don't hire a coach just because they get peeled. Hire the coach's coach because they got peeled.
so hire me, not Cam. No, I'm
And
kidding.
then if you're thinking about hiring Paul, hire me instead. So just work your way all the way up the chain.
um Shit, now I forgot what I was gonna say.
I think it was about when I was talking about Jeremy and
Oh no, dude, that was of huge value. And I remember early on when you first started coaching, I don't think you had a lot of self-confidence, but I remember you were like, dude, can you help me like get clients? And occasionally, like I would pass one off or whatever. But I remember that like you had a huge advantage too, just being able to have that audience. And I mean, and not to take anything away from you too, you were a go-getter. Like you were willing to like approach people, start conversation, hear them out, and then eventually, kind of sell yourself somewhere in that conversation. So I think social media platforms, they are, um, they hold a whole lot of value, you know, but I do think a lot of people get way too lost into sort of like the likes and stuff, and I don't know, just put
yeah,
more emphasis into Instagram than like producing good work, you know?
I could care less about the likes. It's more so I'm going for like the portfolio. Like, what does it look like when someone clicks on my page and they're looking through the media that shows up? Like, yeah, I could care less about likes. I remember I would like look at like when my audience was like the most active and trying like time posts. And now I'm like, oh, cool. Just put together this cool transformation. It's like 2 in the morning. I'm posting it now because I just know it'll be up there on my page if someone clicks on it. But yeah, don't just put stuff out there for fluff because fluff is going to look bad. Um, and just put out quality content.
Like you went the route of I want people to see my work, whereas a lot of people go the route of let me hire a professional photographer, so I can take pretty photos, post, for the year, post them occasionally, and that'll boost my likes because more people like professional photos, and that shit is just not important. You shouldn't be wasting your time and money taking a fucking photo shoot, you know?
Yeah, I think we had a conversation about this the other day about like how you see the number one like content producers, but then you don't really see who they coach. And then you see who's coaching all like the world champions, and you're like, where's the content? Where's the infographics? Where's the podcast? All that stuff. And you're like, oh wait, they're too fucking busy actually coaching their clients to world champions to put out an infographic about how the net carbs in Quest bars makes the calories more. Like they're just way too busy actually putting in the work than putting out the content. So it's an interesting parallel there.
It's weird out. I think that changes too, because early on, before I was talking about buy-in, buy-in can be a variety of things, whether it's entertainment, it's you looking good, or it's you proving that you're knowledgeable, you know? Um, but fuck, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking
I
about?
mean,
I
you bring
got
up a good point when you talk about how vain the field is in coaching. It's like we all know, like when we're at our leanest, we get the most applications. When I am a couple weeks out
Oh,
from a bodybuilding show and my brain actually doesn't function, that's when I'm getting applications every single day because you have the look. But when you don't have the look, no one gives a shit anymore.
yeah.
So there is
Oh,
that vein that you can't get away from.
that's what I was gonna say is just how it changes over time. Early on, you spend a lot of time marketing, putting up informational stuff, or you should be at least, or in my opinion, whatever your buy-in is and whatever that avenue is, and hopefully you have a variety of ways to get people to buy in because not everybody's sold on the same thing, and some people may even be turned off by the science and all that stuff. But then, people who actually have clients and who actually get busy, eventually you see their like sort of social media presence start to taper off, and now they're just like, I don't have time to sit down and be like, all right, let me answer Q&As all day today on my Instagram story.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree too. And I've even noticed it with myself. I'm like, geez, I'm never like explaining like how I took so and so through the diet or throw up even just like, oh, starting macros, ending macros, target. Like I'll do it occasionally when I have time because I think it's neat, especially with, just some outliers that it's cool to kind of see. Um, but yeah, I definitely think there's a pendulum there because at first, it's like I don't really have much of a clientele. I need people to know that I know what I'm doing. I need them to think that I'm smart and everything like that. And then you start bringing on people, working with them, start producing results. You know that you know what you're doing. Like I could give two shits if someone thinks I'm smart or not. Like I don't care. Like I don't need to prove anybody anything. Um,
I mean,
and
how many do you ever get it now where people come to you and they're like, "Oh, like sell yourself to me. Like why are you the coach for me?" I get those emails and I'm like, all these people that they did really well. Is that enough for you? If it's not, there's plenty of other good coaches. You can go elsewhere. Like
I
I'm so past the stage of like, I have a master's in exercise physiology. Like these like limp dick flexes just to get people to hire me.
I'm like, you sell yourself to me because I don't have a whole lot of fucking time right now.
Exactly.
we used to always have to explain, like why macros is okay and why, you don't have to eat bro foods 24/7. And I remember when we would have consult calls, before I would even shoot prices and explain how I do things, I would start going into that. So then when I would bring up the macro stuff instead of a meal plan, they would already know why. Or especially like that RIR or an RPE scale training style. I remember always having to explain that. And then, I mean, I know now Paul and I, like, we don't, unless someone wants to know why, then I'll explain it. Or if they're struggling to be like, like, are you sure? Blah, blah, then I'll explain it. But like, I don't even use it as a selling tool to like prove anything now. It's just like, nope, here, this is what we do.
Yeah. So the next question kind of goes off of this one, and it says it's basically saying it's from JP Harvey, and he says, "How do you go from getting those first clients to building out your entire base of online clients? So how do you go from 2, 3, 5 people? How do you scale that up to 30, 40, 50 people? Cam, what do you think the best way to scale up your online client base would be?"
Uh, for me, in my experience, because the anecdote, that's the only thing I know. What I did was I had a couple people just like that kind of general lifestyle stuff, mostly weight loss clients because that's what I did. It's like, oh, cool, he did that, he can get me there. So I had mostly weight loss people. Um, and then I started working with one guy that just wanted to diet named Michael. Paul, it was one of Paul's friends. Um, you remember him, Paul?
Yeah, Biaba.
Yeah, he got really lean and looked really good. And I started to actually get more athletic type people. And then ended up seeing Jeremy's page, seeing that he was X amount of weeks out. And I reached out to him and I was talking to him, figuring out what he was doing. He told me. And at this point, I was 20 years old and had never prepped anybody. So I was like, dude, I want to put this kid on stage, blah, blah, blah. And I figured out what he was doing. And from what I knew, I told him, I was like, look, man, you know, I'm 20. You would be the first athlete I've ever prepped before. I'm not saying that it would be perfect and it would be smooth, but I can guarantee you from what I know and what you're doing, then it would go better if we work together with this. And I told him, I was like, you know, you do this thing, and if you go in or just stick with me, I told him, I was like, you know, you're my first competitor. I'll never charge you ever. And brought him on, and from there it just went really well. And from that, you know, just reaching out to people, having people contact me through that. But I do a lot of, you know, people will reach out and talk to me, and just starting conversations and building connections with people, and you know, making sure that they don't have a coach first, and then talking to them, you know, about potentially working together, whether they just want to get on a call and pick my brain on stuff or questions that might make them more comfortable to talk about working together, and kind of just going from there. Not doing 8-week booty blasters.
Don't get me started.
Competitions.
Paul, how about you? Where'd you have your biggest success in going from the first couple clients up to kind of the roster that you have now?
Honestly, I think a lot of it just comes down to just one, having a platform like Instagram to be able to show like your work you're doing. And plus all that stuff, like I said before, with the buy-in and the posts. I think just being good to your clients, and once you have 3 to 5, and you're good to them and you have a few successes, then it moves to 10. Next thing you know, it's 15, 20. And the next thing you know, you have like a full-time job with 30 plus clients, 40 clients, So,
Yeah, I think the being good to the clients that you have is something that people miss out on when they first start. They have their first 3 to 5 clients, and they're like getting a taste for the money that they can make in online coaching, and they're spending all their time producing content to kind of get themselves up to 10, to get themselves up to 20, and they forget about the clients that they have. They neglect them, and then they go away. I think there's a very high like attrition rate or churning rate among online clients, and it's because you don't treat them well. It's like the three of us, we don't do any marketing. And between the three of us, we have well over 100 clients, and we don't do any marketing. We're all full-time coaches that do zero marketing whatsoever. So we just rely on word of mouth. I can't tell you how many clients have come my way, just word of mouth. This client told their friends got good results, they told them, and boom, and it just keeps going and it keeps going. So value the ones that you have, and I promise you, if you do a good job, they'll bring more your direction.
I get extremely pissed when I'll have, you know, athletes where I start talking about previous coaching history with other people, and these coaches that just put themselves so much higher than the athlete, like it just on a pedestal, and it's bullshit. Like it makes me mad. Like part of the reason that, you know, I treat my athletes so well was because one of the reasons I started out coaching was through, you know, being kicked out, having to move in with Paul, and the child support and everything like that, and appreciating like, oh, cool, like I'm going to be able to probably make rent this month and not be stressed for the next week because I made it there. Like just appreciating like the coaches that put themselves higher than the athletes. It's like, dude, no, like we need them more than they need us. Like there's so many coaches out here. Like you don't treat them well, they're going to leave. Like these athletes have given me like an opportunity to actually do something with my life. Like, it gets me worked up when.
dude, it's huge too. I can't tell you the number of clients that I've gotten just because I'm willing to like build somewhat of a relationship with them. Like, because people are tired of sending emails out and not getting a reply back for 2 weeks, or maybe just not even getting a reply back. And like, I know some clients have told me it's huge to them just for them to be able to be like, hey, can we schedule a call this week? And I take like, 20 minutes, half an hour or whatever, just to like talk about whatever issues they're having. And obviously that's not necessarily like a requirement to be an online coach or whatever, but people do want to feel somewhat of a connection with their coach.
And I
For sure.
promise you too, if you build that connection, it will improve your coaching success. It will improve your communication. I was kind of talking about earlier, when first starting out, probably up until, I will still ask every now and again too, like, hey, is there anything I need to pick up on, whatever. But that communication, like you explain to them, like, hey, I'm no more important than you. You're no more important than me. Like, I need you to be successful for me to be successful, and vice versa. And I just kind of tell people, it's like a quarterback and a running back. And I've told so many of my athletes this too. So they're probably like, oh, I've heard that before. But yeah, it's like quarterback and running back. You need a running game to have a passing game, and vice versa. And yeah, just building that connection and relationship too. There's just more trust and value into it, and not this weird barrier that has to be there. And it's just like a duo effort. I don't know.
I love how Ryan, you say we're on the same team.
Yeah, and my clients hear me say that all the time. It's like when you win, I win. We are both mutually interested in you getting the absolute best results possible. So same team. Yeah, Paul has definitely heard me say that many times before.
Another thing too, like keep notes whenever you're asking your athletes, like, what can I do better on? Or even keep notes on when you have athletes coming from other coaches, like, why did they leave them? Start gathering a bunch of ideas of, cool, I'm starting to see a trend of people leaving people for this reason, or, this is a new one. Am I doing this? Could that potentially cause somebody to leave? And you kind of start figuring out, cool, like, this comes up more frequent, like there's most likely going to be a bigger population that's going to be demanding an opposite of what they didn't get there.
Effort's huge, man. If people see you put it, people appreciate effort, you know? Even if things aren't perfect and like things aren't going well all the time, and they see you like busting your ass and really trying to figure shit out, or always kind of putting in, what is it, like just a consistent effort, man, that goes a long way. We just talked about it, how like a lot of coaches don't, or, even when it comes to communication. So,
Sorry.
And it's interesting when I hear people talk about having 100 clients or having over 100 clients, and it blows my mind that there's a level of communication there that is somewhat productive. But from what you guys are saying, and maybe some of the trends that Cam is seeing, like why people are leaving other coaches, maybe that communication isn't there. Because I know I've gotten it from clients where they're just like, I can't believe that I can text you. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Of course you can fucking text me. Like, what are you talking
Sam,
about?
dude, I coached a guy.
Don't email me. Yes, I was saying the same thing. It's 2020 and I'm 21 years old. Don't email me. Like,
I
Oh,
won't say
damn.
the coach's name, but I picked up a client from a really well-known big coach within the bodybuilding community. And he was like, man, this is so different working with you. He's like, my old coach, if I didn't send a photo in the email, he had no idea who I was. Dude had like 150 clients.
Attach a picture of your driver's license and
And
your
then I
social
was like, because
security
I heard
number.
this, I heard this particular coach only charged like 150 bucks a month or something. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. He's still killing it. He has 150 fucking clients.
Yeah, that Walmart brand coaching. Just do as many as possible and keep it nice and cheap. Doesn't have to be quality. But the next part, and we kind of covered this question right here a little bit with our last answer. Mike M double underscore I double underscore K double underscore E says, "Do you think a PT certification is enough to start an online coaching business?" And I'll start off by saying, like, it's such a strange question, but technically, like, yes, I guess, because there really is no barrier to entry to online coaching. You really wouldn't need even the PT certification. The PT certification is nice to have to kind of cover your butt with the insurance that comes with that. But even if you're depending on a PT certification for that insurance, a lot of the insurance, the wording in there only covers in-person training, so accidents that occur with in-person training. So if something happens online, like you give your client too much DNP, and we all know the famous coach or famous coaches that have given people too much DNP and they've had clients pass away, like you're still not covered in that scenario. So PT certification, is it enough to start an online coaching business? Technically yes, but probably not. Paul, did you have any other input on this one?
Yeah, man. I think some people sort of go that route. Like they see what coaches are doing and they're into fitness a little themselves. And then they're like, they go get their NASM and they put that shit in their bio. Um, and then they try to be an online coach. But I don't know. I sort of think like for online coaching, it sort of just picks you. It's something that just sort of happens, you know? Um, and in my opinion, I don't think like there are some people might say, oh, you should have a bachelor's degree in exercise science or a certification or whatever. I think you just need a strong like, sort of personal interest within like learning and wanting to develop yourself and your knowledge. And
Care for
yeah, man, I just don't think a lot of people like to make fucking check the list boxes for when you're allowed to do shit. And sometimes, a lot of times, they sound really nice and they're like really pretty and they're decently logical. But at the end of the day, it's just like made up shit that just came from somebody's opinion and doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, one thing that definitely, or a lot of things that aren't covered by, like a PT certification, what does it teach you? It teaches you a little bit of anatomy, a little bit of physiology, a little bit of program design, maybe some exercise selection and form, and then it kind of is like, hey, here's nutrition, don't eat like an asshole, and then you're released out there. But at the end of the day, this is a business, so you need to learn how to pay your taxes. You need to learn record keeping. You need to learn paperwork for liability, waivers, things like that. And none of that is covered in PT certifications. If only there was a group of guys that were putting together a coaching course that did something like that. If only. If only. Where could they be? See, some people probably wouldn't even make it this far into the video, so that's a nice subtle drop right there.
Real quick, because I definitely want to give you a chance to talk, Cam. I'm sorry. Uh, I mean, dude, even coming from my perspective of like getting, well, now I'm just waiting on my graduation date for my master's degree. Uh, but, getting my undergrad and stuff, there are very few people that they're probably, if they ever watch this, they're going to hate me, but only a very small handful of people would I ever trust to say maybe program for like a low level client of mine, and I know even myself, I took like a strength and conditioning course that went sort of in line with the NSCA CSCS. And to be honest, at the end of that course, I knew the definition for periodization and I knew the textbook rep ranges for strength, hypertrophy, and endurance, but I had no idea how to program. And a lot of that comes from one, your personal vested interest and actually doing it. And a lot of times, first practicing it on yourself.
Yeah.
I guess you want me
Cameron,
to. Okay.
it's all you.
So yeah, I have no certificate. I have a high school diploma. I one time did get a personal training certification just for the only sole purpose of training people in person because the gym required me having a cert. So, if you're somebody wondering like, oh, if I get a personal training certification, can I start coaching people? Well, like, let me ask you this, because the personal training certification that I got, I went online. It was a 150 question test. And on the second tab, I had a 150 question answer key pulled up on a separate tab. And I just answered and filled it out because I knew that I didn't need it. The only reason I had it was just to work at that gym. So, I
Disappointing
think
me to
that,
know what kind of person you are, Cam.
Yeah, we got a cheater in our midst. Next
but
thing you're going to be talking about how you take anabolic steroids.
That's how he does his coaching updates. He has a cheat sheet on the next thing. Probably some shit that like he took notes on that I said like 3 years
It's
ago.
Paul
Super
over here like,
outdated
Paul, do I
information.
cut their macros?
No.
but no, I mean, I think that especially really I kind of take it with a grain of salt because I don't know a lot about these certifications and courses. I think from the most part of what I have seen, I think that there are some out there that are a lot more, I guess, advanced in a way, or just a lot more detail and a higher level of difficulty to them that I think that you can learn some things uh, to do it. But I don't think that that's necessarily a threshold of, oh, yes, like I can start coaching now. Because there's a bunch of stuff on there, even after I was coaching, where I've had some friends that they're like, "Hey, do you know the answer to this?" And I'm like, "Hell no! Like, you don't even have to know that. Like, I damn sure I have no idea. Like, no client's gonna be asking a bunch of crazy like things like that, anyways. So yeah, a lot of that stuff with the personal training certifications is, kind of unnecessary too. It's like going to school and, you're wanting to do one thing, but you have all these other little prereqs and stuff that you have to get done. And like fluff intro classes for stuff that doesn't even come close to what you need to know for the area of specificity that you're doing with that job.
Yeah, I mean, coming from someone who has quite a few certifications, I have many letters after my name. Um, I can tell you that I use maybe 10% of what I learned in those certifications on a day-to-day basis, maybe 30, 40% of what I learned in my master's degree on a day-to-day basis, and the other stuff I've either forgotten or I hear about it sometime and I'm like, oh yeah, I think I learned that in like neuromuscular physiology or some class that I probably halfway slept through and didn't take notes or anything like that. So I think if you're going into this with the mindset of like, I'll get a PT certificate and then I'll be an online coach, your logic is flawed right there. I look at online coaching a lot like I look at like the trades, kind of like what Cam was describing, where it's kind of like a trade. Like you should probably go to like trade school for it, where it's like we're not gonna make you take philosophy, we're not gonna make you take intro to computers or anything like that. We're gonna teach you the very specific stuff. We're going to teach you how to use Excel. We're going to teach you how to balance a sheet. We're going to teach you how to set up payment things for your clients. We're going to teach you how to do record keeping, all that kind of stuff. That would be a much better route to teach people how to be online coaches or even personal trainers than saying, hey, for this job where you make $31,000 a year, you need a master's and you need 5 years of experience and you need a CSCS and you need to be a certified exercise physiologist and a certified sports nutritionist. And all these kids that are going into this intro level job just get washed out or they get tired of the industry because they're buried in debt from all these certifications and all this education that they never even used to begin with. So
Was that
start with the base. Pardon?
was that an ad or
Was that an
something?
ad?
Something.
No, never. No, nope. No ad whatsoever. No coaching course in the
No.
works or anything like that.
Dude, no, that's sick, man. Everything you just talked about. Because, one thing I am thankful for regarding school and my experience in the lab doing research is more so just the fundamentals of understanding basic processes and even little stuff so that like I can read studies and see a word and like know what it means and build connections and stuff. But other than that, I mean, it's all contributed towards my coaching at the end of the day. But yeah, very, very little of it is, I guess, practical, you know?
Now there are times too that where I am trying to read studies and read books and stuff where there's stuff that I don't know and do have to look up or ask Paul a lot. Like, dude, I don't even like I can't even understand the point that they're trying to get across because I don't understand. I don't know what some of these things mean, and it has taken me a lot longer to break down some of this stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there would be value to go through a schooling route with stuff just to learn. But to make it to make you qualified, no, I don't think so because I remember when I was first starting and I learned a shit ton through Paul. Like it just so much from the dude, and if it weren't for him, I'd first would have be nowhere near where I am now.
Hearts in the chat.
Oh,
And
where's mine?
uh,
Oh.
but also I remember at the same time, like months into living with him and learning a bunch of stuff, I was like, hey man, like should I go back to school? Like I think I gotten through 2 semesters and then I dropped out because having my son. And I remember I was like, should I go back? Blah blah. And he was like, dude, it'll probably be like 3 years before you even start learning like what you need to learn and what you already know. And it's true. Like I've had 2 people that have paid me to like help them finish their final for getting their degree in exercise science. Um, so I'm not trying to say, don't go to school or whatever, but I think if you want to go to school and be a coach or a trainer one day or somewhere in the fitness industry, like don't make exercise science maybe necessarily your major, maybe minor in it. So you learn some basic stuff and then have some kind of like a trade schooling where it's more specialized in your area of fitness and goals and stuff like that.
I think a good way to look at it might be that school, the traditional academia will teach you the principles, but you really need the practice to teach you the methods. And that's where a lot of people falter is they don't understand how to put this stuff in practice. They focus more on the methods without ever learning the principles to begin with. So I don't want to say that school was completely useless for me because it really hammered in those principles for me of like what actually gets people results. But in terms of like the application side of thing, the methods of applying it to individuals in the real world that have real world shit going on, school did a terrible job of readying me for any of that. I wish I had taken more psychology classes.
And you got to a lot of this stuff working with bodybuilders. Um, there's a lot of things that look really good on paper, and you might have formulas, numbers for, but cool. You have this one side of learning a whole bunch through, studying, listening to podcasts, going to school, whatever. But dude, you have a whole entire another world just learning from straight experience. Shit that, paper everything is going to work this way, but for some reason you can't figure out why, but it just doesn't. That like how many studies are actually out there on bodybuilders and especially enhanced bodybuilders? There's not a lot because it's so hard to have such a big, population to actually do consistent studies on with consistent variables that aren't changing or being altered. And, experience is going to teach a ton. Um, so don't bite off more that you can chew from the start too, just because you might know a whole lot on paper.
I think the next question, the answer you kind of just answered a little bit. Mike Taylor asks, "How do I get over crippling imposter syndrome so I can confidently provide value?" So, Paul, what is, if you were to define imposter syndrome, what is it?
Isn't that where basically you know what you're talking about, at least to an extent, but you feel like you don't, or that maybe you're just a copycat or something like that, essentially? Like
Yeah.
not like you're not original, and so you shouldn't talk, basically.
You feel like a fake. You feel like, oh, I know everything, but everyone else still knows more than me. So who am I to step out and provide value when there's other people out there that are so much ahead of me? And I think Cam kind of just answered that right there. And he said, like, get experience.
I think you just described me like 6 months ago.
I mean, how
Well,
many of us have struggled with exactly that?
Stuff like for y'all too. I was like, oh, like I remember I did that one live Q&A one time. It was going great. I was feeling good. And I see the squat father and Paul hop in. And I think Paul said, your dads are here. Don't fuck it up. And I was just like now, like my hands are sweating. And like, just cause, yeah, I mean, it's tough, especially coming from, with no background degree, especially those that have kind of taught you. And like at the time, I wanted to impress y'all well enough to be able to work with y'all and stuff. And it's hard, you're like, man, like, do I really know what I'm doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of that confidence and stuff just comes with time. Cause I remember just thinking, I was like, damn, like, I do know what I'm doing. Like, obviously, like, what?
dude, you just brought up something that is somewhat of a sidetrack that I think emotionally anybody who is trying to venture into coaching really needs to should be prepared for, and figure out how to overcome is when you start coaching, man. Your highs are high, but your lows, they're fucking low. There will be a lot of instances where you just have lost. You're going to bed and you're laying in your bed and you're like, should I even do this anymore? And it could just be some small shit. Like even early on when you only have like 15 clients and then like maybe somebody leaves because they have financial issues or something, or you're like, hey, it's a big hit to lose a client early on, especially just all kinds of stuff, or maybe something just didn't really go well on peak week. And despite you having all these great successes behind you, you're just looking at that one and you're like, I'm awful at my job. I should quit, need to go get a degree in something else and get a new job.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from, especially aside of it, where it's not maybe the athlete leaving and it's your fault. Like, you messed up on something or whatever, and I know for me, those like downs and lows come just because I care about my athletes, especially with a contest prep. I remember I would have so much stress last year, like those last couple weeks leading into a show, just because, I care about the athlete. We built this relationship, and they just busted their ass for 5 months doing exactly what I said. And if things go wrong, it's because they're following what I'm telling them to do, most likely. And uh, it's just it's tough, but it's gonna happen, and it will continue to happen. Like you look at anything great, like Tom Brady doesn't win every single Super Bowl. Like anything great comes with the downside too, and you just try and learn from it, and it's still gonna keep happening. So get used to it. It's whatever, but if you love it or whatever, you'll just look at the silver lining, break it down, figure out, what went wrong. If an athlete leaves, maybe be like, hey, man, like, I'm still letting you go. I'm not going to force you to stay by any means. There's no bad blood. But if there was something I could have improved on, or maybe a reason why you left, if it's not like financial or something, figure out why and learn and grow from it. Same thing like with an athlete not winning a show. It's like, hey, there's nothing to put your head down about it. Are you better than where you were last time or maybe last month? Cool. Get feedback from the judges, figure out why, and there's nothing. You can either move forward and get better or just hang.
Something that I would add to that is I think that there's a lot of value of surrounding yourself with people, with like-minded people that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. And that's one thing that I really like about kind of like the team that we have here is like I can admit that I'm not the best. Like I'm not the best in the world at strength, at powerlifting, coaching, things like that. But it's super, super beneficial to have someone like Thomas on the team that I can just bounce ideas off of and kind of get some affirmation from them. Or maybe one of you guys, like Cam, comes to me because he has to water cut a client, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to manipulate this, this, and this. Is that correct?" Because he's dealing with that imposter syndrome there of like, "Do I actually know this stuff?" He comes to me and I confirm, like, yeah, like what you're doing is correct. Like just getting that affirmation from other people around you that you respect their opinion, that are qualified in the area, can really help you kind of deal with that imposter syndrome. And Mike, who asked the question, he came to me and he was talking about, hey, I know that I know my stuff. I'm just kind of like struggling providing value, providing content. So we got together and we teamed up, and we're working with someone who's working towards a gold medal at Masters World Championships and Masters National Championships in weightlifting. And he recently came to me and he was like, hey man, like thanks for including me on this. Like it's really helped me get over that kind of stuff. So putting yourself out there and inserting yourself into these situations where you feel uncomfortable and letting yourself succeed, letting yourself be successful is actually how you build self-efficacy in the research. That's these little mini successes that you set up for yourself. That's how you build up the self-confidence and the self-efficacy to kind of tackle bigger and bigger goals. But if you get so wrapped up in your own head that you can't put yourself out there anymore, then you're kind of stuck in this very negative mindset.
One, you'll beat yourself into the ground, and yeah, that negative mindset will surround everything. Everything will just be negative about whatever. Like in this instance, coaching. You'll be worried all the time. It's like, hey, dude, if you're doing this, it's because you love it. Have fun. Realize that you're not going to win every time, whatever, or with a show or anything. You're not going to just win each day with each person, but learning from it and building confidence and just kind of yourself and being like, hey man, like fucking proud of myself. Like I've done this, and not getting too cocky, but just being confident enough will definitely change a whole lot. And I know it has for me, especially like with peaking athletes and show days and stuff, because when I just get in that zone where, I'm confident, know exactly what's going on and what I'm doing, it's one, way more fun. And two, I'm not stuck in this in between of I should do this, I should do that. And maybe I'm just not pushing fully towards this one direction that I need to be going in and I think I need to be going in because I want to hold back, and you just don't get that full outcome or your best result until you're fully like, hey, like we're either doing this or we're not doing it.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have because I can look back in my early coaching days when I didn't really know what I know now. And one thing that I can always be proud of is that if I told someone to do something that I look back on and I'm like, man, that was pretty stupid, at least I told them to do that stupid thing with a lot of confidence. My own ignorance really pushed my clients to
Now
success.
you know it doesn't work.
Now I
Not
know for
going back to
sure.
that one.
Now you're like,
So
I'm dumb.
So thank you to the 3 old clients that I have buried in my backyard. You taught me so much.
Oh man, basically, are you German?
Whoa, let's come on, it's 2020. Let's not
That's some
go there.
Mr. Block method shit for real.
Damn right it is. All right, so we'll leave the people. Well, that'll be our last question. We'll leave the people with an Eastern Bloc secret. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but in East Germany, to give their women a competitive advantage in training up to the Olympics, they used to have their women get pregnant. Like the female athletes would get pregnant so that they could take advantage of that increased blood volume in the first trimester and get like hella training adaptations. And as soon as they made it to second trimester, they would get an abortion. But by the time the competition rolled around, they still had the benefits of those training adaptations from the earlier phases. Paul, have you ever heard that?
I have
Have you
heard
heard that
that.
story?
It's definitely
Yeah.
for sure in Wikipedia. Um, but like, don't you have drugs for that? Like, wasn't drug testing not that great back then?
Yeah. Maybe they're probably combining it with drugs.
I have heard it though. That is a big sort of thing circulating, and I don't doubt it. They were fucking crazy. And science for them was very different than like science for us. It was just like, hey, let's see what this shit does. And there was no like rigorous like ethics board or
Nope.
necessarily method or hypothesis. It was just like, we're going to see what this does. We're going to record the results in our own little personal books.
Who can we test it on? Athletes. They'll do anything. Hey, this has an advantage. Okay, I'll do it. All right, I'll
They
do
had
it. Yeah,
to.
I'm down for it.
Like their athletes were like, they were put in a position where, maybe it was just some like gifted kid with like not shit behind them, and they're like, okay, we'll feed you, we'll clothe you, we'll make sure you have a good life as long as you train and you perform. And so like they would force them to take drugs and stuff, and they were so taken care of that it's like, well, fuck, like I'm not going to say no and like lose this life.
I actually read a story about Ilya Ilyin, the former gold medal weightlifter from Kazakhstan, that they found him, young kid, terrible upbringing. Kazakhstan basically took him in, said, hey, we'll train you, we'll clothe you, we'll house you, we'll do all that. And you're right, at that point, it's like, what am I going to do? Say no? It's like when Paul goes broke and I make him come live with me and I'm just putting all sorts of, we're just giving him Captain America drugs and whatnot. It's like, what are you going to do? Say no at this point? I own you. All right, so another episode of the Coaches Q&A down. We do still have a couple questions left that we are going to get to on the next one. Keep the questions coming. Drop them in the comments below. As always, subscribe, like, comment, do all that influencer, YouTube, ad revenue, shit that we need, to pay our bills and whatnot so Cam can afford that sweet apartment that he's got. Cam, it is looking fresh. But that is where we will leave you today. Another episode in the books. Stay gifted.
Bye.